Testing, one, two, three, testing. Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So today I want to talk about why you should not play fair because we don't live in a world that is fair. If you don't embrace social power, you'll never have it. Some people hate privileged people, yet they still want that privilege for themselves. That is called cognitive dissonance. I believe that cognitive dissonance is actually the root of a lot of mental illnesses like depression and anxiety. Because a lot of women, they will lie to themselves and then they'll say things like, I don't care about compliments. I don't want a black man. I don't want a white man. I don't want validation. I don't care about followers. So they'll say that to themselves, but then when they see someone else getting it, like getting that attention, then they will get upset. And that is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when your actions and like what you think about yourself, it doesn't line up with reality. Another form of cognitive dissonance is trying to convince yourself that you're pretty, but then you're not actually operating in this world with pretty privilege. That's a huge form of cognitive dissonance that I see a lot of women with inferiority complexes kind of promoting online. And so they will swear up and down that they have so much pretty privilege, but then when they go out into the world, they're not operating in that actual pretty privilege. That's no different than a broke man lying and saying, oh, I'm rich, I got so much money. But then when it comes time to live a rich lifestyle, he can't come up with the money. That's cognitive dissonance. Some women, they don't know how to learn from their enemies. The best way that I like to get revenge on my enemies is by actually studying them and learning from them and acknowledging their positive qualities and then taking on their positive qualities as my own. That's the real destiny swapping right there. Like a lot of people, they talk about destiny swapping. Shout out to Exotical Epiphany. I love her channel. But a lot of people, they talk about destiny swapping. But I feel like if you really do want to quote unquote destiny swap, or if you want to kind of take someone's place, you really can't do that because I feel like, your life is your own and like nobody has the same path in life as you. But one way that I alchemize my enemies and the way that I get revenge is by learning from them. I will sit down, I will study my enemy's business practices. I will study how she does her YouTube channel. I will study her talking points because people are doing it to you. People are studying your beauty. They're studying how you do your hair. They're studying your makeup. They're studying how you handle your business in the workplace. They're studying your organizational skills and trying to copy them. So one thing that I like to do is I will actually sit there and I will learn from my enemy and say, okay, what good quality does she have about herself that I can then take on for myself? And then I can flex it back if I want to. I can flex that on her. Is she skinny and I'm a big back? And maybe she made fun of me for being fat. Okay, let me become skinny and in shape as well. Then she can't say shit. You know what I mean? So I've noticed though that some women are so immature that if they are jealous of someone, that person automatically becomes their enemy. Have you ever noticed that? Like if I'm jealous of someone, I will actually alchemize the jealousy. I will work through that jealousy within myself. But there are some women who, if they're jealous of you, you're just going to become their enemy. You're the bad guy because you are the object of their jealousy. So that's actually a sign of immaturity. That's very similar to a toddler throwing a tantrum. That's a sign of emotional immaturity. It's making the person you're jealous of your enemy. One of the ways that I like to alchemize jealousy is to realize that jealousy is just clarity. Jealousy is pointing you to your desires. So it's like if I get jealous of somebody's body type or something, like let's talk about pretty privilege jealousy because there are a lot of different aspects of pretty privilege. You could have pretty eyes, pretty skin, pretty face, pretty hair, pretty teeth or something, a pretty body. You could have a really nice shape, a nice physique, nice long legs, I don't know, pretty nails. So one way that you can alchemize jealousy is by actually pinpointing, okay, I'm jealous of her beauty. What exactly about her beauty am I jealous of? What quality does she have that I want? That's actually very important. A part of emotional intelligence is being able to self identify the reason why you feel a particular emotion. So I've noticed that sometimes when women get jealous, they will feel a sense of disappointment. And their disappointment is because maybe you thought that, being 200 pounds, maybe you thought that was skinny enough until you saw a girl that was only 150. And now you're disappointed in yourself because you thought you had done enough, but then you realize that there's another level. It's very important to be able to identify things like that. Why do I feel the envy? Why do I feel the jealousy? If I could trade lives with her, or if I could trade places with her, what would I want? What does she have that I don't have? Is she getting compliments on her hair and I don't get compliments on my hair? Why do I want compliments on my hair to begin with? Who do I want to receive the compliments from? How will it make me feel getting compliments on my hair? Is it important to me? If you're jealous of something, that means that that thing is deeply important to you. And by the way, I forgot to say this at the beginning. This video is inspired by the Exotical tax collector. Be sure to check out her channel. Her channel is not for the faint of heart. If you unsubscribe to me because I shouted out the Exotical tax collector, that's fine. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. You're never going to hear me talk crap about other Exotical channels, especially if they have Exotical in their name or if they're giving credit to Exoticals. I don't care what their viewpoints are. So be sure to check her out because she actually did a video about Silas the Golden Peach. I did a video on her recently as well, but she was talking about the difference between pretty privilege and pity privilege. There are some women who actually want pretty privilege, but they don't believe that they can get it. So instead, they will try to get privilege by using other people's pity. They want you to throw a pity party for them. So think about what a pity party actually means. It means that you're celebrating that person because you feel sorry for them. That's literally the definition of the term pity party. Oh, I feel bad for you, so let me celebrate your beauty. Oh, I feel bad for you, so let me celebrate how pretty your skin is. Oh, I feel sad for you, so let me celebrate you even though you're 500 pounds. Pretty privilege versus pity privilege. One of them is going to be more satisfying than the other. And that's very important to know as well. Like, I try to assess within myself what privileges are most important to me. And there is no wrong answer. So, yeah, you can lie all you want and say, oh no, it's the most important to like help other people and be altruistic and be Mother Teresa. Okay, that's important to you. I care about beauty, success, fame, influence, money. I've noticed that those are some of the things I care about. I care about relationships. I'm a relationship oriented person. I love having positive friendships, positive family members, positive interactions with strangers, with men, with whoever. I am a relationship oriented person. This doesn't mean that I center all of those things because I know how to center my identity around my emotional and physical well being. But as far as what I prioritize, that's important. The women who prioritize beauty are often the women who are the most beautiful. The people who prioritize financial stability are often the most financially stable. The people who prioritize their families are often very family oriented. You know, they have positive relationships with their families. The women who prioritize men are often male centered. So you get to decide what you prioritize, and you can't get mad if another woman prioritized something else and she succeeded based off of that. Life is not fair. And so, for the people whose life sucks, if your life sucks, what is the common denominator in your life? Every day you're waking up as yourself, right? You're the only one who's living your life. You're the only one who's walking around every day living in your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So you can't really blame other people for your life being messed up because you get out of life what you put into it. And for those of you who think like, oh, well, it's not fair because I'm underprivileged, everybody has pros and cons in their life. Okay, so that's why I say that you should just start privilege stacking. Why play fair in an unfair world? Other people are taking advantage of their privileges. I don't see people who are born as multi-billionaires saying, "Oh, I was born as a multi-billionaire. It's not fair that I have this wealth privilege. So I'm not going to go to college. I'm not going to buy a house. I'm not going to invest in a business. No, I'm not going to use that because it's not fair." No, just because you would give away billions of dollars for free doesn't mean that other people are going to do that. I know that's not fair, but the sooner you accept that, the more equipped you'll be to actually manifest the life you want. So I don't consider myself to be spiritual or religious. I don't claim that because I just feel like there are a lot of negative connotations with that. But I do believe in the general concept of alchemy, transmutation, manifestation. That's why I say you guys should definitely check out the Exotical Tax Collector, because she talks a lot about this on her channel. She talks about alchemy. She talks about kind of transmuting negative emotions into positive emotions. Some women, they don't know how to transmute their negative emotions. And so I've noticed that a lot of women with inferiority complexes, their depression and their anxiety and their inferiority, it will manifest as jealousy. It will manifest as anger or aggression or violence or abuse against their children, abuse against women or something like that. Even Exotical Epiphany talks about that as well. So, why play fair in an unfair world? If you had access to any unfair advantages, what would you choose? And there is no wrong answer. Another thing that I see a lot of women say when they are losers, when they're basically losers in life or when they feel like a loser, they'll say, she doesn't deserve that wealth. She doesn't deserve that fame. She doesn't deserve that money. She doesn't deserve those compliments. She's not pretty. She's just mixed. She's not pretty. She's just skinny. So they'll say these things in order to cope with the fact that she feels like she's losing in the game of life. And she doesn't realize that deep down inside, she prioritizes pretty privilege or being thin. Show me what a woman insults, and then I will show you what she prioritizes. You can always tell what a woman's priorities are based on what she's jealous of. You can always tell what a woman's priorities are based on what she complains about. So, for example, you can even judge me on this. You see me kind of complaining and dissecting men a lot on this channel. Okay, so that shows you that I prioritize my emotional independence. I prioritize my independence. I prioritize my emotional stability and my peace. So that's why I complain or I bring things out that I feel are taking away from my emotional stability or my emotional peace. So anything that takes away from your emotional peace, you should definitely look at that and say, hey, why is it taking away from my peace being with this man? Or why is this thing taking away from my peace not being considered pretty? Why does it bother me so much that I'm not considered beautiful? That's a question that a lot of Black women don't ask themselves. Why does it bother me so much that I'm not considered pretty? Why do I care about being pretty? Oh, it's because deep down inside, I want pretty privilege. So just admit that you want the pretty privilege and then do certain things to validate your beauty. So you have to constantly be on this journey of validating yourself. Like seeking after the privileges that I want, that is a form of micro validation for me. Every time I work out, every time I work on my business, every time I upload a YouTube video, every time I eat a healthy meal, whenever I take care of my hair, I'm about to do my deep conditioning routine this afternoon. So every time I do those things, that's a way of validating myself and I'm improving my privilege. I believe that some privileges you're born with, but other privileges can be earned. Thin privilege can actually be earned. Pretty privilege can actually be purchased. Light skin privilege can actually be purchased if you purchase some creams and kojic acid and hydroquinone or whatever. So a lot of women, they're too dumb to realize things like that. Like there are some things that can be purchased. Wealth privilege, you can do certain things to increase your wealth. You can save money. Like there are many different strategies to gain wealth. You can save more money. You can invest in the stock market. You can purchase properties. You can get an education. Maybe you can like increase your income or something, start a side hustle, start a business. So there are many different strategies to attain privilege, but some women are so closed-minded and they're just not smart. This is why I say that really having intelligence privilege, having the privilege of being a smart woman is really going to be the strongest one. I really feel like that's the foundation of all of the other ones. It's having intelligence privilege, because if you're smart, you can really start going after whatever privileges you want. And then you can pick and choose, okay, do I want to be pretty? Okay, how pretty do I want to be? Do I want to be like 10 out of 10, like Hollywood pretty? What kind of beauty do I want? Those are the types of thoughts of a strategic feminine woman. I just feel like privilege stacking should be a part of your feminine strategy. It's a part of divine femininity. I know that for me, a lot of my other privilege stacking habits they all enhance one another. They're all intertwined. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Atomic Habits. It's a book. I think it's by James Clear or somebody like that. So if you look into the concept of habit stacking, that's really where I got my idea for privilege stacking. By the way, if you see other people on YouTube talking about privilege and privilege stacking and social climbing, they definitely got that from the exotical space. But one privilege can actually build upon another. So, for example, I think the reason why people get jealous is because your pretty privilege can make it faster and easier for you to gain wealth privilege because maybe you can become a model or do IG or whatever. I don't know, get a rich guy or something. I have no idea. But that's one thing that women who are not strategic, they don't understand that. Having social strategy, having strategic privilege, which is really, I feel like that's a spin off of like intelligence privilege, but knowing how to socially strategize, that's going to help you the most. Because then you can start to think to yourself, wait a minute, if I have the privilege of being a good cook, that means that it's going to be easier for me to eat healthier because I can learn how to cook really good tasting recipes that are also healthy. I know for me personally, one of my privileges when it comes to food is I don't mind raw foods. So I recently started eating about 50% raw fruits and vegetables. And now my body is looking more snatched than ever. It's enhancing my beauty privilege. My hair actually, it's starting to look shinier and thicker from eating all these avocados and eating a whole bunch of spinach and stuff. So that's one of my privileges is that I actually don't require much. I know how to live on the bare minimum when it comes to food if necessary. I don't need a whole bunch of like catfish and seasoning and fried chicken and onion rings and fried pickles and all that just to have a good meal. So, gratefulness, did you know that gratefulness, that's actually a huge privilege? There are so many studies on gratitude practices and the benefits for your mental health when it comes to like being grateful. So, I've noticed that like whenever I'm eating my avocado, because that's one of my favorite things right now. You know what? I'm going to eat an avocado after this. But when I'm eating my avocado, I like to start meditating and thinking to myself, this avocado is going to nourish my body so much. This avocado has more potassium than a banana. This avocado is going to make my hair shiny and thick and moisturized. It's going to make my skin look better. So while I'm eating the item, I'm actually like brainwashing myself in a positive way. And I'm reminding myself of all of the positive aspects of eating that avocado. I can't do that when I'm eating fried chicken and catfish. And so that's another thing too. Some women they don't have the privilege of positive self-talk. Having positive self-talk is a huge advantage. So like when you saw Silas the Golden Peach, she was talking about how other people talked negatively to her and how she has no self-esteem because of that. Well, if you have positive self-talk, it's going to easily drown out other people's negative self-talk about you. But if you don't have that, then yeah, other people can easily control your self esteem. All they have to do is call you burnt. Boom, your self esteem's gone. All they have to do is call you blackie. Boom, your self esteem's gone. All they have to do is call your hair nappy. Boom, you're depressed now because you don't have positive self talk to balance it out. There's no boundary between yourself and others. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term enmeshment, kind of like enmeshing your identity with somebody else's, or like, there are no boundaries between you and somebody else. So whatever he thinks of me is what I think of myself. Whatever the white man thinks of me, that's what I think of myself. Whatever my school friends think of me or my coworkers think of me, that's what I think of myself. I don't have that problem. That's a disadvantage. So instead of privilege stacking, there are some women out here who are literally trauma stacking. So that's a good question to ask yourself. Are you privilege stacking or are you trauma stacking? Are you ruminating on positive things that happened in your life or negative things? Because for the people who believe in manifestation, the reason that I even talk about this kind of stuff is because I really do believe that some of it is kind of loosely tied to psychology a little bit. So I love when spirituality and science and psychology overlap. I love seeing that. I think that's beautiful. Um, that's one of the things that actually makes me passionate about psychology and sociology. So did you know that supposedly, according to the manifestation community, allegedly, you think around 70,000 or so thoughts per day, or like your brain is like affirming yourself about 70,000 times per day. So your inner dialogue is actually affirmations, or it could be, negative things that you're saying about yourself. So every thought that you think is technically, it could be some form of affirmation. All the stories you're telling yourself in your head, all of the memories that you replay in your mind, that's a form of affirmation, or it's a form of like inferiority complex building and, trauma stacking. This is what causes PTSD, by the way. It's when something bad happens to you, then you're ruminating on that negative thing, and then, your body starts to react, you start sweating, you start getting anxious and stuff like that. So it's the same thing. Some women have social PTSD. They have ugly girl PTSD. And I'm sorry for saying it like that. I just don't know how else to describe it. But they have ugly girl PTSD. They have colorism PTSD. They've got blackness PTSD. I don't have PTSD from my blackness because I don't view blackness as a handicap. Anything negative that anybody has ever said about my blackness, calling me the N-word or whatever, I don't even allow those thoughts to ruminate in my mind. And so, like, it's gone. It just rolls off my shoulders because I've affirmed myself so much about my blackness and about my skin tone and all that, my hair and all that, to the point where I don't have the PTSD symptoms. And so some women don't know how to manage their own mental illnesses. They let their mental illness control them instead of them being in control of their own mind. Wasn't it Albert Einstein that said a mind is a terrible thing to waste? I don't know if that was Einstein, but somebody said that. So you're the one who's in charge of your mind. You control your thoughts. You don't let your thoughts control you. This is basic Christianity 101. This is basic manifestation and alchemy and law of attraction 101. This is basic stoicism 101. No matter what spiritual or religious background you come from, that is one of the core beliefs that will help you to learn how to alchemize as much as you can. So this is why I tell you guys that one of the methods that I did was whenever someone complimented me, I would add that to my affirmations, or I would journal about it. Like, okay, today I was walking down the street, someone complimented me, I was wearing a blue shirt. They complimented the color blue on me. Or like, for example, I've noticed there's this one powder blue, like a baby blue dress that I have. It's like a button up dress. And I went to the coffee shop, and the guy at the coffee shop, he was like, "Oh, that's a beautiful dress on you. I like the powder blue. It looks beautiful on your complexion." And so I memorized that, and I repeat that to myself all the time. Like, "Oh, powder blue looks great on my skin tone." Even the guy at the coffee shop said it. Or like, when I was in 7th grade, like I can list off probably hundreds of positive memories that I have of positive validations that I've received. And I would say if you have never received positive validation from others, first of all, I find it hard to believe that. But let's say you don't have any positive validation. That's why you have to take initiative. Nobody owes you a compliment. Nobody owes you self esteem, hence why it's called self esteem and not others' esteem. A compliment, literally, the word compliment means it is supposed to complement the self esteem that's already there. That's why it's called a compliment. So, this is why I say some women are literally just not smart because you're not understanding the definitions of words. It's called compliments for a reason. It's called self esteem and self concept and self worth for a reason. So if you don't have any self esteem, whose fault is it? Yourself. If you don't have any self worth or self concept, that's your own fault. And I've noticed that some women, they actually they have confidence jealousy. So they're jealous of another woman's confidence. So whenever we talk about the privilege conversation, I've noticed that women, they're not recognizing that with everything you chase in life, you're actually chasing after an emotion. So you want to be rich. Why? So you can feel stable. Feeling stable, notice how I said feel. You want to feel stable. You want to have a good relationship with some man. You want a hypergamous marriage or whatever. You want the princess treatment. Why? So you can feel like a princess. You're chasing after an emotion. So this is why I center my entire identity around my emotional stability, my emotional intelligence, my sense of peace, And I don't like to only do it in a spiritual, fluffy way either. I like to have science to back up my shit. Because I've noticed sometimes religions and stuff, sometimes they will fail you. Kind of like the spiritual people, like, oh, just pray about it. Oh, just get some crystals. Oh, he cheated on you 25 times, but if you put some crystals around him or do this voodoo thing, then maybe he'll stop. No. I need actual science and proof. I need proof of concept, baby. You can't just tell me to get some crystals and do some voodoo. So that's another thing that you have to do is find things that work for you. Another thing is that some women, they don't understand the difference between boundaries versus standards. Boundaries are designed to keep your self-love intact. It's designed, a boundary is to prevent you from being manipulated, it's to prevent you from being used and violated. Standards are the qualifications that others must have before you entertain them. Okay, so I have a certain standard for my friendships. I have a certain standard for a man that wants to interact with me. I have a certain standard for myself and my YouTube channel, my business, my finances. So I have noticed that some people, they don't realize the difference between the two. And so they'll conflate the two, or they're not intelligent enough to go within themselves and create those boundaries. So for example, dating boundaries could be like, you don't do any last minute dates. You don't receive calls after 11 p.m. And then a dating standard would be must make six figures or above, must be 6 feet tall, must have a nice jawline, I don't know, a nice hairline, must have all his teeth. But I feel like at the core of all this, at the core of a lot of women's depression, they're not realizing that this world is not fair. Okay, so stop playing fair in a world that's unfair. This world wasn't set up to be fair. The world was not set up for everybody to win. So it's up to you to decide what areas you would like to win in and then start stacking your habits. Because privilege stacking is really like a form of habit stacking. And I think that there are some women, like I said, some privileges you're born with and some privileges you earn or you purchase. So if you were not born with pretty privilege, all you have to do is save up your money. That means you have to build your financial privilege so that you can purchase the pretty privilege if it's that serious to you. And you guys know me, I have very controversial views on this. I will never shame, I feel like there's no right or wrong way to attain a particular privilege. As long as you're not trying to actively hurt others, I don't see anything wrong with you purchasing some makeup or something, or purchasing a wig or something. The only thing that I'm going to call out, though, is when you try to shame other people who were born that way, but then you want to purchase something to look like them. That's when I'm going to call you out on your bullshit, because not only is that bad social climbing, but you are actively trying to tear others down. So that's the part I don't support. I don't support the part where you're actively trying to ruin others. Like I don't purchase a blonde wig and then go make fun of blonde white women and say they're ugly and mediocre and regular and they look like regular white girls. I don't do that because I acknowledge the beauty of what I'm trying to attain. That's another thing. You'll never have social power if you don't have a good relationship with it. You'll never have a certain thing if you don't have a good mindset about it. So if you hate beauty and you hate beautiful women, you'll never be a beautiful woman. You'll never be able to embrace being a beautiful woman because you'll have too much cognitive dissonance to manifest beauty in your life. You'll have too much cognitive dissonance because you won't even have the attitude of a beautiful woman. Did you know that I can always tell a woman who has pretty privilege versus a woman who doesn't simply based on how she carries herself? And I'm not saying it like, oh my God, all pretty women are so perfect and confident. No, but I am saying though, can't you tell the difference between an extremely jealous woman who feels inferior versus a woman who's just kind of content and kind of minding her own business? You can always tell the difference. And I know that some people are like, well, affirmations don't work for me. Okay, then find something that does work. That's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to find what works for you. So I know for me, what works to build my privileges is affirming myself. It's doing beauty hobbies in terms of pretty privilege. And then in terms of like creativity privilege and all that, and business and finance privilege, it is consistency. That's another fundamental quality that I have that I notice a lot of other women don't have. They don't know how to consistently show up for themselves. They don't consistently post videos. They don't consistently go to the gym. They don't consistently eat avocados. They don't consistently do anything. They're not growing out their hair consistently. They're only deep conditioning once every 6 months. That's not consistency. And so it takes discipline to build any sort of privilege. Like if you weren't born with a particular privilege, which I would argue a lot of people are not. So there's nothing to feel ashamed of. Too. I've noticed that's another thing. It's almost as if some people, they have such a horrible complex to the point where simply not being born with a particular thing makes them feel inferior. So like if I wasn't born with a big booty, oh my God, I'm worse off than somebody who was born with a big booty. Like how low does your self-esteem have to be for you to even think like that? If it's that serious to have a big booty, then go purchase it. Go get one of those butt pads. A lot of the women in one of the cities I used to live in, they would literally buy those underwear that have little butt pads in them, and they would just wear those under their jeans. And they would get their jeans in one size bigger, and then they would just wear the butt pads. So they literally solved their problem with like $10. Just be careful. Make sure you wear a belt though, because one time this girl, her jeans kind of were sagging down a little bit, then you could see the butt pads. So I would say if you're going to wear the booty pads, make sure to wear a belt. So this is where creativity privilege comes into play, because you get to be creative with how you want to build and curate your particular privilege mix. Because I believe that a lot of people, you don't just have one privilege, you probably have multiple. If you're able bodied and pretty and wealthy, you know, you have thin privilege, you have creativity privilege, you're very intelligent. Oh my God, that's so much to work with right there. And even if you're quote unquote ugly, do you have financial privilege? Because you can easily purchase some pretty privilege if it's that serious. But also if you want pretty privilege, it's also important to ask yourself, what is your concept of pretty privilege based on? Do you want pretty privilege in the eyes of the male gaze? Like, what kind of pretty privilege do you want? Because that is something that I personally have strategized about as well. Like, okay, do I want men to find me pretty? Do I want other women to find me pretty? Do I want to be Instagram baddie pretty? Do I want to be Pinterest pretty? And it turns out I want a little bit of everything. It turns out that I'm basically one of those bitches that wants it all. And so that's fine. That just means that I have to do more work, though. That means I have to strategize on all of those different ways to attain all of those different forms of pretty privilege. Because pretty privilege is not a monolith. Financial privilege is not a monolith. You could be considered financially privileged in Mexico, but you're not financially privileged in the US. So you can actually start breaking down all the nuances of all the different privileges, and then you can ask yourself, what exact financial privilege do I need? Because I know for me personally, I actually don't want a Lamborghini. I don't care about cars. I've noticed that I've never really cared about cars. The car that I have now, I decided that that is my dream car, like that make and model of a car. That's my dream car, because I don't really care about having a Lamborghini in particular. So even when it comes to financial privilege, that's not a monolith either. I would say that the only time it's a monolith is if you care more so about how you look in the eyes of others. Like if you're one of those people who's like, oh, I want to have financial privilege so I can show off my house to other people. I've noticed I happen to not want a mansion. Like I really thought about this recently. I was like, because I'm going to buy a house eventually. Well, actually, I'm going to buy a condo. This is what made me decide I want to buy a condo, because I'm child free. I don't have a desire to have a big giant mansion or have like a 6 or 7 bedroom home. I've noticed that I don't tend to invite people over. And when I do invite people over, these are people who I trust. They're not people that would judge me or be impressed by my wealth anyway. I'm not wealthy. I'm just regular. I'm middle class. But these people, they wouldn't be impressed anyway, because they're not wealth centered people or like materialistic or anything. So that was how I decided what financial privilege level works for me. Everybody doesn't want to be a multi-billionaire. That's okay. So another way that I've learned to navigate my different privileges is to ask myself, what level of that particular privilege do I want? Like how much privilege makes me feel financially privileged? And I realized as long as I'm able to take care of myself and as long as I'm not stressed about money, I'm actually pretty happy. I don't have to have a Lamborghini. If somebody gives me a Lamborghini, okay, that's fine. That's different. But would I save up hundreds of thousands of dollars or, put a down payment of tens of thousands of dollars on a Lamborghini? If I won the lottery tomorrow, would I go purchase a Lamborghini? No, I wouldn't. But I see nothing wrong with playing unfair as long as you are not actively trying to hurt people. So, this is why, when it comes to pretty privilege, if I see a woman trying to actively hurt another woman's self image, yeah, that's when I'm going to call that shit out. But I feel like if you're not actively trying to hurt somebody else's self image, or you're not actively stealing somebody else's money or something, then you have the right to utilize whatever quote unquote privileges you have to set up yourself and your family for the best life possible. And I've noticed that some people get mad because they're like, well, you shouldn't change your body. You shouldn't change yourself. Okay, but why is me changing my body, why is that hurting you? Like, I'm not hurting you. So that's how I know that people saying that's out of jealousy most of the time. It's out of inferiority most of the time, because that person feels like they're going to get left behind in terms of the beauty standard. And so actually, I think it was Vice. It was either Vice or Jubilee that did a video recently on plastic surgery. They had pro plastic surgery people and anti plastic surgery people on there. And then one of the girls, she actually said that. She was like, me changing my body doesn't hurt you, so why are you offended by it? And then the girl admitted later on in the video, she admitted that she works with a lot of influencers, and that seeing all the influencers with like perfect teeth and perfect boobs and stuff, it started to make her question herself. Okay, so but that's an internal problem. That's not my problem that me having perfect teeth makes you question your teeth. I'm not going to walk around with crooked teeth so that you don't feel insecure about your crooked teeth. If I have an insecurity that I want to solve, like if I'm insecure about crooked teeth and I fix them, that's my business. And I've also noticed that another thing that holds women back is they don't admit their own insecurities to themselves. They don't admit what they're physically insecure about and if they want to do anything about it. I just feel like sometimes self acceptance can leak over into toxic positivity when they're like, oh, just accept yourself. It's like, well, no, I'm not going to accept myself in the same way if I'm 500 pounds. I don't accept that. I won't accept myself at 500 pounds. So stop telling me, oh, just accept yourself. No, I have a standard for myself. My standard for myself is I want to have pretty privilege, thin privilege. I want as many privileges as possible. And I want to be able to experiment with new privileges as well. So that's another thing. I've noticed some girls, they get mad when you want to experiment with a new privilege. Hey, I have dark brown eyes. Let me put on some light brown contacts and see if there is a such thing as light brown eye privilege, and, if it affects me in any way or if it changes anything for me. And then if I don't like it, I will go back to my dark brown eyes. Have you ever noticed how when you do something that benefits you, it pisses people off? Like if you look pretty, people get pissed off. When you get rich, people get pissed off. When you get a college degree, people are pissed off. If you're in a happy relationship, or maybe you have a lot of friends, you're popular, people are pissed off. You start a business, you work for yourself now. You don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. and drive in traffic. Now people are pissed off. So it's like the only reason that they're pissed off is because you're benefiting yourself and they don't know how to benefit themselves in the same way. And so if I had to choose between changing myself or wallowing in inferiority, I will change myself to the gods. I don't care if I morph into an alien. I don't care if I have a whole different mindset. I don't care if I have to legally change my name. I don't care if I have to move to a new geographical location. There is nothing that is going to hinder my emotional and mental stability. So if I'm so depressed about like my weight or something, to the point where it's affecting my daily life, then I'm going to lose weight. It's very simple. This is not complicated. If you don't like something about yourself, change it. But if you don't feel comfortable changing it, then accept it. Those are the only two options. But I really do feel like a lot of women, though, the self-acceptance talking point, I do feel like oftentimes that is toxic positivity. Just accept yourself being obese. You can still love yourself. You can still like love and accept yourself as a human being, but you don't accept the obesity. You know what I mean? So I feel like whenever they talk about self-love and self-acceptance, they don't go enough into the nuance. And I feel like it causes some people to be complacent and then they just get bitter and angry and mad. So you can start to ask yourself too, like, okay, what aspects of life are unacceptable to me? Because I know that dealing with a dusty man, that's unacceptable to me. So I'll never accept it. Oh, well, just accept it. Just accept what you have in your life. No, just be grateful for what you have. You have a man, you have a husband. Nope, I'm not grateful. It didn't work. So now what? Now I'm going to do a purge. I'm going to get rid of the things that make me feel ungrateful. And who gonna check me? I'm not religious, so I don't have to prove to you that I'm a good person. I don't consider myself to be this spiritual person, so I don't have to prove to you, oh, I'm such a good person because I accepted this dusty husband and I held him down for 50 years. No, I don't have to prove myself to anyone. I've released myself of the shackles of being like morally performative. I just feel like a lot of religious and spiritual people can be very performative. Oh, well, you're a bad person because you have XYZ privilege and you got rich off of it. Okay. I'm only a bad person to you because you're Christian or you're, pro black or whatever movement you're following and whatever rules you're following. I broke your rules. That's really what it is. And so once I released myself from the rules, once I took all the rules off and said, hey, as long as I am not directly like trying to harm anyone, I'm good. Because morality is subjective. Right and wrong is subjective depending on your culture. It's against the law to unalive someone in the United States unless you are a part of the United States military or potentially the CIA or whatever. So do you see the subjective morality right there? So if other people practice subjective morality, why can't I? Why play fair in an unfair world? Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comments section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.